All right, hello. Welcome to the Hold My Helmet Football Podcast, and I'm your host, Will Reichling.
And I'm Dylan Boyle.
Dylan, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, man. I had such a great time last time. I had to come back. You know?
For sure.
We have some exciting topics to get into, so let's do it.
Let's do it, indeed. Indeed, exciting. I would like to start with Dalvin Cook being released by the Minnesota Vikings. And Dylan, it was a little shocking to me, but at the same time, you could understand why it happened, you know?
Yeah, I was more so shocked at the first glance, because, Dalvin Cook, he put up around 1,200 yards last season, 10 touchdowns, and those are performing numbers, But you got to realize the Vikings do need to make some changes after that tragic loss last season to the Giants.
Yeah, and they definitely, because the Vikings, that Giants game showed that the Vikings were indeed frauds. They're not going to go 11-0 again in one-score games. I think they're going to be, a little more average this season, 8-9 wins. Definitely not going to, would they win? I forgot what they won last year. I think it was like 13 games or 12 games or something like that. They're not going to win that many games this year.
Not going to lie. They had a pretty easy schedule, so...
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So that may play a part because they have a tougher schedule this upcoming season. So
I do think Alexander Madison will fit that role nicely, though. He's scheduled to make $3.5 million. Dalvin Cook was scheduled to make $13 million.
If you have a running back that can get the job done at half the price, why keep the other one? On average, running backs only last 5 years, and he's coming around to his 7th year now. So I could kind of see where they're going there. So, but he's still in my top 10 running backs in the league right now.
I would agree with that, but I would put him closer to 10 than to 1 or even 5.
Well, yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, exactly. So we did make our top 10 list each for running backs, and we're going to compare. So we're going to start with our top 3 each. So I'm going to go first. So let's do it.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
So number 1, I still have Derrick Henry as the best running back in the league. Look, he's King Henry. People think it's funny because we kind of all feel like he had an off season last year. He had 1,500 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns, so he's still great.
Mm-hmm.
Until he has a down season, he's still the best running back in the league to me. So I have Derrick Henry as number 1.
That's fair. Okay.
Nick Chubb, I have at number 2. I don't think there's any debate on that either. He's easily a top 3 running back. And you could argue him for 1, and I wouldn't be shocked. And you could argue him for 3, I wouldn't be shocked. But I'm at 2. But I like him because of his consistency the last couple seasons, and because he reminds you of the kind of like an old school running back, he can kind of run right through you, but also run for like a 70-yard touchdown. It's a little weird, but it's in a good way.
Now you say that, it makes sense, yeah.
So number 3, I have Josh Jacobs. Honestly, last season he was the best running back in the league. The problem is I don't know if he's going to be able to reproduce that. I mean, he's had a lot of really good seasons, but he also had a couple of mediocre seasons. So, he did have 2,000 yards from scrimmage last year, and that is a great season. But will he be able to produce again, Dylan? That's my question on Josh Jacobs.
So I'm actually going to go the other way with it. I have Josh Jacobs as my number 1.
I can see that. I understand.
This is actually going to be crazy. We looked into his stats, and we found something a little odd. So Josh Jacobs, he's the number 1 because not just because he's the number 1 in PFF, because he is. He's ranked number 1 in PFF, but he's also my number 1 because he's the only performing running back in Vegas right now. The second and third most yards on the Raiders last season was from 2 quarterbacks.
So wait, you're telling me Jarrett Stidham had more rushing yards than their backup running back?
That's right.
That is crazy. I actually didn't know that one.
So Josh Jacobs had 340 carries last season. The second highest carries from a running back is 17. 17 carries.
Wow.
That's pretty wow. Like you know what? Derek Carr is the second leading rusher.
And I'm pretty sure
and has the second most carries.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he only had 100 yards too. So their second leading rusher has 100 yards. So,
yeah. That's
I didn't know
crazy.
Jarrett Stidham was their third leading rusher though. That's crazy.
I know you might think he had a great season just because he had a lot of carries, but he averaged 4.9 yards per carry. Now that's great for a running back. So he really made the most of it when he had the ball.
Yeah, you're right. He did.
My number 2 running back is Nick Chubb. Cleveland definitely still was a competitive team last season. Don't get me wrong. And you can't really say Nick Chubb wasn't a big part of that because he was. He had Kareem Hunt to fall back on, don't get me wrong, but Kareem Hunt definitely took a step back from what he used to be, you know? And this is exactly why I have Josh Jacobs as my number 1 over Chubb, because he didn't have another running back to back him up. Josh Jacobs did it all on his own, you know? He didn't have anybody else. Nick Chubb, he had somebody to rely on. So that's kind of why I lined it up the way I did. And then number 3, I have Derrick Henry. And listen, Derrick Henry's great, just like you said. I wanted to put him at my number 1, but you got to realize he's 29 years old. And just like we've been saying, like, age is key. And when is he going to hit his peak? And it seems like he had a good season. He had a great season last year. But I really think he hit his peak this year. That's just my take on it, okay?
Okay. It's funny because we're a little shuffled there, but we basically had the same 3 players in our top 3, just in different order. So
makes sense.
Number 4, though, you could argue this guy for the top 3. I have Christian McCaffrey. He's the most versatile running back on this list. He could catch passes. You know, he could run in between the tackles. He's a great player, Christian McCaffrey. But yeah, I'm fair. A little worried about his injuries. He was relatively healthy last season, though, so hopefully he can keep that going in San Francisco. But, you got to worry a little bit about that because you can't put him in the top 3 when you don't know if he's going to play the whole season.
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
They're probably going to want to save, if he does get a little banged up too, they probably will want to save him for playoff time so he's healthy during the playoffs. So
he's just one of those players, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I have Christian McCaffrey at 4. He's still easily a top 5 player, though, no doubt. Number 5, I have Jonathan Taylor, and that's funny too because going into last season, I would easily have had him at number 1. I'm pretty sure almost everyone in fantasy drafted him in number 1 this season, including me. It was very disappointing because he got injured, but when he did play, he was effective. Jonathan Taylor has the potential to be in the top 3 again. You never know what's going to happen year from year with these running backs. It does shuffle a lot, but there are a lot of really good running backs. If you look at this top 5, Dylan, these are some good running backs.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's really hard to organize them, which one is which, I actually have Jonathan Taylor as my top 5 too, which is funny. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Jonathan Taylor is still a really good running back, and it just fits the narrative. He really doesn't have that other running back that's protecting him. Like, the Colts only really have Jonathan Taylor as their running back, number 1. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. Deion Jackson had a couple moments, but he wasn't anything Jonathan Taylor was. So
no, yeah. So he did do a lot of the carrying. But my number 4 is actually Saquon Barkley, and exactly what I've been saying this whole time. If you don't have a running back to back you up, you're really doing it all on your own, and they should really appreciate that in a running back. And it kind of just throws me, we're going to get into it later, but it kind of throws me off that why wouldn't you pay your running back? You only have one, and he's a performer. But we're going to get into that later, okay? So that's my top 5, Saquon Barkley, and then Jonathan Taylor.
Well, I have Barkley at 6, and he was great to start the first half of last season, but then he struggled in the second half of last season. And he was a little better at this last season, but I don't think he's great at running in between the tackles. Last season he was better, don't get me wrong, but a lot of Barkley's career has been 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 1 yard, loss of gain, 60-yard touchdown. Saquon Barkley is kind of.
Can you blame that on him though, or?
They always do have a bad offensive line, but I feel like that's just the kind of play Barkley is. He's great at catching. The Giants were using him wrong for years, and Dable kind of finally unlocked him away.
Okay, but don't you understand that it becomes a little predictable when it's the Giants, and obviously they're either gonna run with Daniel Jones or run with Saquon Barkley. So yeah, he was a key target. They knew what they were. They knew that Saquon Barkley. They predicted it, and he was still a performer.
Well, another factor in this is because he gets injured a lot, and he's been injured a lot of the times in his career. So I wouldn't pay him at all. But we're getting to that later. But I mean, I would pay him, just not the number that he wants. But
we'll get into that later. Yeah. We have a whole thing.
At number 7, I have Austin Eckler. It's kind of crazy because he's never had a 1,000-yard season, but he has last season the most total touchdowns by a running back, and he also does a lot in the passing game. He's a good receiver out of the backfield. So Austin Eckler's still effective. He also is not someone that didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So. But
Crazy, man.
Still a great running back, and he's not your typical running back. Nick Chubb is, but Austin Eckler isn't because he does a lot out of the catching passes out of the backfield as well. So that's why he never really had 1,000 yards.
Very versatile.
Yeah, that's why he never had 1,000-yard rushing season. Doesn't mean he's not great.
Yeah, if you add up his total yardage, then you'll actually see the big picture.
Yeah,
he is a key weapon on that team,
and his total touchdowns.
Absolutely. So yeah, my number 6 is actually Christian McCaffrey, and I think this just goes to actually what you were saying. He's very versatile. It really doesn't get more versatile than putting him as the quarterback.
Yeah,
that's pretty crazy. So it just goes to show on how special Christian McCaffrey is, you know? Yeah. So that's really why he's at number. I wish I could put him higher, but he just gets hurt too much, and But then my number 7 is going to run into Austin Eckler, and he's just a beast, man. Like, there's nothing more I can say exactly what you said. He's a beast. He hits the gym often. That's what you want in your running back, to be really grinding, really building himself, because that's the type of running back that's going to hit the hole hard and is going to be effective,
Yeah. So we both had Eckler at 7. Our 4 and 6 changed. So this is where it starts getting interesting because I think we have it flipped. I have Aaron Jones at 8 and Dalvin Cook at 9. You have Dalvin Cook at 8 and Aaron Jones at 9. I'll let you say your part first, and then I'll make my rebuttal.
So Dalvin Cook, he's my number 8 over Aaron Jones because, A.J. Dillon, he was still an effective running back. Don't get me wrong. He did take a step back, but he had 770 yards. So this just fits my whole narrative on if you have a backup, you're gonna, have a lot more energy. And, Alexander Madison only had 283 yards. So you could clearly see that Dalvin Cook was doing more of the work there. He was cooking up.
All right, well, I don't necessarily agree with this narrative that you're trying to push that one running back's better than another running back because he had more carries.
No, but that's exactly what it is. If you're out there the whole time hitting the hole and then finally get a long run, what do you mean?
I'll tell you why I think Aaron Jones is better than Dalvin Cook. Yards per carry. Aaron Jones had 5.3 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook had 4.4 yards per carry. Aaron Jones at this point is more explosive than Dalvin Cook. Yes, Dalvin Cook was explosive at some point in his career.
Stats, but whatever, man. Look at the play. Come on.
I do look at the play. Dalvin Cook he's still a very effective running back, but he's not as explosive as Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones gets hurt sometimes too. So I do understand it, but right now it's very close. I will admit it's very close. You can go either way.
All right, we'll leave it at that. But okay, so we both have the same number 10. We have Tony Pollard as our number 10. And the big reason, so this is kind of crazy because you would think that that Zeke would be doing most of the work because he had around 12 touchdowns last season. But if you look back and see his yard, he had like 700 or so yards. Tony Pollard had 1,000+ yards. So you can see that they were mainly using Tony Pollard to get the yardage and really push it in with Zeke. And you could really do that with anyone. So why are you paying Zeke all this money just to push it in the hole? You can really get anyone for that.
Yeah, and Tony Pollard, first 1,000-yard season of his career rushing. He is coming off the big injury, so it's going to be interesting to see how he'll come back from that. But I think he's going to hit the ground. He's a great player. He's very explosive. He also catches a lot of passes out of the backfield, so he's effective with that. He's not a great pass blocker, but that's why Zeke was also important, but Tony Pollard, I think, has established himself as a top 10 running back in the league. It's interesting because I do want to bring up, Dylan, that I have Breece Hall at 11. Now, he missed half the season, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can pick it up where he left off when he comes back last season. Because he was, hands down, everyone was like, this guy is the rookie of the year. And I don't want to be home because I'm a Jets fan.
You don't know where he's going to go after that injury. Running backs could really go either way.
You're right.
Are they going to,
You're right. I understand.
Go through the rehab and come out better or fall off?
A lot of them usually come back better, especially if they're young like this. But that's the top 10 we have. So we have a few differences, but I think we have everyone. I think our top 10 players, it's all the same players.
No, they are. They literally are. They're just scattered.
Okay.
And it does make sense, you know?
And there's some things we argued about, the Aaron Jones and Dalvin Cook thing, but for the most part, it could go either way, and I think we could agree on that.
Yeah, no, so it's pretty similar.
Yeah.
So we can agree upon that. But I think the real narrative is why all these running backs are being franchise tagged, not being signed to deals, and being released. Like
Well,
they're all really good running backs, and almost everybody on this list is dealing with some sort of conflict with their team, and it's bizarre.
And I was about to say that. It's crazy how, if you look, the running backs on this list, there's so many good running backs, and it's crazy how they're not valued with all these great backs in the league. The state of the running backs right now are awful.
Yeah, absolutely,
awful.
man. Like I kind of get it. You could only last so long in the league as a running back because after 5 years, it just becomes a waiting game before you get hurt. But I see why all these quarterbacks are asking for a lot of money now. Now it's all making sense because Saquon Barkley, if he gets hurt, he's not going to get a contract or anything. That's why I think he should have grabbed that contract and ran with it. If he gets hurt this season, bye-bye Saquon Barkley, because he is not signing to the Giants after that.
Well, it's funny. Before I get into Barkley with you, I'd like to add, you said after 5 years, it's kind of like a recycling game with the running back situation. The free agents under 30 right now: Dalvin Cook, 27, Zeke, 27, Kareem Hunt, 27, J.D. McKissick, 29, Leonard Fournette, 28. You think all these guys are in their early to mid 30s from all the way, from all the way from the way these teams treat them and from the wear and tear on their body. Some of them look like they actually lost a step, but that's not the case. They're in their late 20s, so
they're all elite running backs too. Like these are names that
these are names. These are players that were big time players at one point, and still recently too. Dalvin Cook has been very effective, but back in the previous century and even in the early 2000s, running back was the most important position in the NFL. I can name so many great running backs from back in the day that led their team to Super Bowls and NFL championships. And they were drafted very high in the draft. Top 10, number 1 overall. That just isn't the case anymore, Dylan. It's a quarterback, wide receiver, left tackle league. And running backs are treated, that's why people were very shocked when Bijan Robinson was drafted 8th overall to the Falcons. And Jahmyr Gibbs went 12th overall to the Detroit Lions. Because people are like, why you draft a running back that high? Same thing with Barkley. He's been, especially his rookie season and last season, he had some very good seasons, but he's also been hurt a lot. So I understand where the Giants are coming from. The Giants offered him for $14 million. It wasn't fully guaranteed, but it was incentive based. I thought it was not a bad deal, and Barkley turned it down. So then they tagged him with the franchise tag, $10 million, all guaranteed. He doesn't sign it. So I understand where the Giants are coming from, though.
I scratched my head at this one too because, I do agree. You got to pay the quarterback. That's the most important position. Why doesn't Saquon Barkley understand that? Why doesn't he understand that?
You have to pay the quarterback, not the running back. And you did bring up if Saquon Barkley got hurt, it would be a disaster. And that's the ironic part because running backs clearly are still valued.
What deal? Wait, hold on. What deal would the Giants give them after he got hurt? And what deal would Saquon Barkley accept? Because he didn't accept $14 million. What would he accept?
I think a guaranteed money had a lot to do with that. He didn't want the incentive base. He would have.
It's not happening.
He would have met most of the incentives, though. He would have met most of the incentives.
That's what I'm saying. He's a performer. He would have got it done.
But like I said, you have to pay the quarterback.
I'm heated. This is this is a hot topic.
Well, because this is your team. I don't know if I mentioned Dylan is a Giants fan, so you have a Jets fan and a Giants fan. Obviously, since we're from New York.
Yes, we will be getting into it this season. I will.
We'll get into it, but hopefully it doesn't turn to the for the worse. But like I said, ironically, if he got hurt, the Giants would be screwed. So clearly, running backs are still valued to some degree because he is probably the most important player on that offense. But running backs still have value, but teams just don't want to pay them. And that's what it just comes down to. And it's a similar situation with Josh Jacobs. They franchise tagged him and he won't sign the tag. In a way, it's are these running backs in cahoots?
That's what it seems like. It seems like they all got each other's numbers and they're texting us hey, we're all going on strike.
It could be possible.
What's going on here?
We're not creating a conspiracy theory. We're not in the conspiracy theory business. We are in the football business.
Yes, but it is seeming to look like that a lot.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But, state of the running back situation, I think that's where this whole episode sums up to. The state of the running back, even though we listed our top 10 and there were some great players in that top 10, we probably left some great players off.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that doesn't matter because teams are not taking care of the running back position. They're treating them kind of like garbage.
just disposable.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? It's not.
Yeah.
I kind of feel for them because it's really not fair.
That's why a lot of these running backs are trying to get paid now or as early as possible. That's why Zeke got paid early. That's why now all these players are getting franchise tagged.
It should really be. There should be some sort of understanding where a running back gets paid even as high as a receiver because they're taking just as much damage, are they not?
Yeah, no, they are.
There should be some sort of understanding where they get paid a good chunk in their beginning season, when they peak 5-6 years, and then, a moderate contract.
Well,
in their
actually,
later years.
That's
fair.
In a way, I agreed and said they are, but they're really not because the way the rules have changed, you can't really hit receivers over in the middle anymore. It's kind of geared towards quarterback and receiver and offense, but the running back position, they still get hit full speed. You can't hit them head to head, but other than that, everything else is fair game, other than horse collaring.
Obviously, they're gonna get hurt. Obviously, they're gonna get some sort of injury.
And wide receivers wear down too over time too. I mean, name the wide receivers in the league over 30. There's not that many. You'd be surprised.
Cooper Cup.
I don't know.
He's 30.
He is 30.
He's 30 now.
Well, now it's probably more because they got older. But really, there's not that many.
Yeah.
If you look at the list.
I mean, he's the only exception, honestly.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of good ones, but it's really not as many as you think. I'm telling you. But that's what the
honestly, we might get into that next episode.
Yeah, maybe we should do a top 10 receivers next week.
Yeah, I don't know, top 10. There's a lot of good receivers.
All right, maybe top 15 or top 20 because there's
we might have to do top 20.
Yeah,
I think so. That's fair.
Maybe we just decide on that. So all right,
let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, we got our next.
Thanks for coming on, Dylan. So the way I want to structure this is, eventually I'm going to incorporate Dylan into the podcast. So over the next few weeks, he's going to be getting acclimated to becoming my co-host. So everyone, like I said, welcome Dylan. Don't screw up.
This is gonna be fun, man. We're gonna do good.
Yeah, we're gonna have a blast, and we're still working on it. But we're getting there, and we're gonna put in the work. And thank you for showing support so far.
Yeah, man. All the comments and stuff, we see you.
We appreciate it, and it's a work in progress. There's still things we have to perfect. We're not perfect.
No, not at all.
We're basically coming into this clueless, and I think we've been doing okay so far.
I mean, yeah, for what we started, like we literally started 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we didn't know how to hook.
Man.
Yeah, we didn't
give
know
us
how
a break.
It's very
give us a break.
So thanks for coming on.
No, it's fun, man.
And we'll see you next week.
See you guys later.